Sometimes desperation drives men to do the unthinkable, but what happens when a life of missteps leads to murder, escapes, and an electric chair finale? This is the twisted story of Donald Demag, the man who crossed borders, stole freedom, and took lives, only to become the last person ever executed in Vermont. Donald Demag wasn't your average troublemaker. Born in Burlington, Vermont in 1922, Demag was the type of guy who couldn't keep himself out of trouble if his life depended on it. Maybe it was because he was the oldest of 5, or maybe it was just in his nature. But by the time he hit his teenage years, he had already racked up a record that made small-town police sigh in unison every time his name came up. From motor vehicle offenses to a grand larceny charge that sent him straight to a reformatory at 17, young Donald had a knack for pushing the limits. But let's backtrack for a second. Demag wasn't just some petty criminal spiraling out of control. He was also a husband and a father, married young with a growing family, 2 kids to be exact, and more problems than he could handle. Life, like a cruel joke, didn't exactly hand him a break. By the time he was 25, the bills were stacking up and desperation was setting in. No job, no money. And when his empty pockets couldn't keep up with the demands of family life, he turned to a familiar place: crime. Now you'd think in this moment of desperation, he'd come up with something clever. But instead, he decided to ask a local harness shop owner, 81-year-old Francis Racicot, for a loan. It was an odd choice. But hey, maybe Demag thought Racicot would take pity on him. Unfortunately, pity wasn't on the menu that day. Racicot refused, and things went south, fast. Demag's frustration boiled over into violence. Grabbing the nearest thing within reach, an iron shaker, he beat Racicot to death. And for what? Less than $100. That's right. All that carnage for pocket change. 5 days later, the police caught up with Demag, and so began the trial that would ultimately lead him to Vermont's electric chair. You see, life had a way of throwing curveballs at Demag, but even he wasn't ready for the twist his trial would take. He had a few things working in his favor, though. As a toddler, Demag contracted scarlet fever, which left him deaf in one ear and prone to seizures, a medical condition that, for some strange reason, tugged at the jurors' heartstrings. The jury had to decide death penalty or life in prison. In the end, they chose life. Demag would rot away in the Vermont State Prison, or so everyone thought. But a man like Demag wasn't built for confinement. He was itching for freedom. Just 2 years into his sentence, he decided prison life wasn't for him, and he made his first escape attempt. And, shockingly, he succeeded. Now here's where the story takes a strange twist. He crossed into Canada, safe and sound, with freedom practically hugging him. But what does Donald do next? Well, for reasons no one can explain, he decided it was a good idea to come back to the United States. The authorities caught him again after just 15 days of freedom. 15 days. You'd think he would have had enough of the outside world after that stunt, but Demag wasn't done yet. Back in prison, Demag found an accomplice in another criminal, Francis Blair, a fellow inmate doing time for bank robbery. The two became fast friends, maybe because, let's face it, the prison yard wasn't exactly overflowing with decent people to bond with. Together, they cooked up another plan. This time, it was a big one. In 1952, during one of those rare prison miracles, the stars aligned. Someone had left the keys in a laundry van parked in the yard. You can guess what happened next. Demag and Blair jumped in, floored it, and smashed right through the steel gates. Now you might think that escaping from a maximum security prison would mean they'd plan things out, set up a safe house, make a break for the nearest coast. You know, typical escapee behavior. But nope. They drove until they ran out of gas in Springfield, Vermont. Smooth, right? Now, desperate for food and clothing, the pair stumbled upon the Weatherup household, a secluded home nestled deep in the woods. They had no intention of causing any harm, at least that's what they told themselves. But then they woke up the elderly couple who lived there, and things spiraled out of control, again. Blair, perhaps channeling Demag's earlier rage, grabbed an iron bar and brutally beat the couple. Mrs. Weatherup didn't survive the attack. It wasn't long before the authorities discovered the gruesome scene. Demag and Blair were caught again. This time, they weren't getting off easy. For Demag, his luck had finally run out. The final chapter of Demag's life wasn't a quiet one. After being convicted of murder, both Demag and Blair were sentenced to die in Vermont's electric chair, an ending neither of them probably anticipated when they made that ill-fated laundry van getaway. Blair went first, executed on February 8, 1954. Demag, not wanting to be outdone, followed exactly 10 months later, on December 8, 1954. In the end, Donald Demag wasn't just a small-time criminal or a prison escape artist. He became a part of history. How? He was the last man Vermont ever executed, and in a way, that's the only thing he truly succeeded at in his life. From petty theft to prison breaks to cold-blooded murder, Donald Demag's story is one where desperation met disaster at every turn. Sometimes it seems the only thing worse than living a life of crime is being remembered for it.